All right, good evening, everyone. It is Monday, July 15, 2019, 5:32 p.m., and we are at the conference room in City Hall, and we do have a quorum. As authorized by Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, this meeting may be convened in a closed executive session for the purpose of seeking confidential legal advice from the city attorney in any agenda item herein. The City of Raleigh reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign the regular session or call the executive session or order of business anytime prior to adjournment. We have one item on the agenda. It is item 2A, discuss phase 1 design for Herfurth Park. So welcome, gentlemen. And
Good evening.
Angie.
Good evening. I'm only going to sit here for a second, and I'm going to turn it over to LaTara. Our goal tonight is to talk through really Herfurth Park and what the master plan looks like and get council consensus on that, if you will, so that we can go out and start doing some public meetings and have clear direction on what council wants this park to look like in the future. I'll introduce Michael Black and Brad Moulton from LaTara, and I'm literally going to turn it over to them, and they're going to do their thing for the next couple of hours with you guys getting feedback. So, any questions for me before I go back and take notes?
You're not leaving.
I'm not leaving. I'm just going to go sit right here.
Okay.
All right, so I guess I just want to start off by going, all right, so let's think back. I think April 16th council meeting maybe was the day that I was the 15th, around there, that I was in front of you guys and we were kind of finalizing the contract and just kind of say, okay, at some point in the future, there should be this time where we get to do what we're doing tonight. So we don't have all the answers then, we probably don't have all the answers now, right? But this is, I think, our time to just, we get to spend time together and let's get the plan going and hear everybody's thoughts, their history, their future for this park. And we've got a few slides, but some of the kind of main topics, like Andy discussed, is the program. What items are we going to design into this park? And once we get that done, then we'll kind of go through a phasing exercise to determine what we can accomplish with what phase 1 is fund-wise now that we can get something built on. So kind of that, we're going to just kind of jump into some programming discussion, and then I don't want to spend too much time on all the past designs. I think everybody in this room has probably seen some of that in the past. We have them here in case we want to say, well, I kind of like this idea. We might go reference that where we kind of flush that out. And also, too, some things that have happened. I think there's been some more development on the parcel to the east of Herfurth Park that we didn't have when we originally did the master planning in 2014. So with that, let's just kind of jump in. If y'all were to say, okay, LaTara Studio, y'all's contract is approved, phase 1 is done. This is kind of what we're considering as is program items of today. Y'all said, you know what, everybody is good on council. We want trails, we want some type of a land form play area, a non-traditional playground. I think we went through that whole exercise with Kids Kingdom at one point at this location, and ultimately decided from a urban design city downtown park that Kids Kingdom probably felt better where it is now, out farther east.
Irrelevant at this point.
Irrelevant at this point. But it does, where it is. So, but it does lead to this idea that we're not abandoning a playground at Herfurth. It will just be more of, we're thinking more of a urban, non-traditional play form playground. Golf park, y'all addressed that since we've last done the master plan, and there's a functioning golf park on the south side of the park now. A spray ground, some type of water interaction, probably something non-traditional, not like you would see at a splash park around. That's just something out of the catalog, something probably a little bit more design intensive. Parking has always been a discussion and concern, and that's been probably one of my biggest concerns is vehicular access through the park and parking within it. Temporary stage location so that during a large event, y'all can transform it into a place that could hold possibly, I think we've gone out maybe 10,000 people for a large event, something that would be larger than what y'all do at 4th of July downtown, right? So like a large, sure enough. Yeah. Something that can transform into a farmer's market. We also, looking out there from a botanical garden standpoint, we want to do some analysis on seeing why some of those trees aren't performing like they normally would. There are some nice large trees out there, but it doesn't have that botanical park feeling that I think it could if it's redesigned and thought through. I think there's some different levels of what the botanical garden could be. Is it just feeling like you're more in a park with more green, more organic feel to it, or is it something more than that, where there's a lot more of a, you go through an experience and study the different types of plants that are out there. So that's something we can talk about tonight. We've always thought about that large event, multi-use open space. You see that in these urban downtown parks, where it's just mainly unprogrammed, large open green spaces that can kind of transform as different uses throughout here. There's been some discussion passed on the existing tennis court and the pickleball court. We're making sure there is pickleball courts out there because of the trend that we're seeing now. So we kind of can talk about, do we want to scrap the location, or do we want to try to build around it in a urban grid pattern that those existing courts are basically aligned right where a future realignment of Centennial would go. So that's something we need to really think about. We also want the idea of food truck locations, the outdoor cultural events, the public art areas, signage, wayfinding, park rangers, the restrooms in the park. So that's kind of our current thought of what a program item would be. So there's kind of want to open it up to some opportunities that y'all see at council and maybe some constraints that y'all see. I've got some lists in my mind, so some opportunities and constraints, but this is really a good time to talk about programming, what y'all want to see designed into the park, and the pros and cons, and that way we can move forward with the master planning of that. So is that kind of update everybody where we are program-wise? Angie, is there anything to add?
I think that what Michael really just did is kind of give the highlights of our last meeting, which was May the 15th in 2018, when we decided that we would kind of put together some ideas before we started doing drawings, right? So instead of just creating site plan, and picking that apart, really looking at the more natural elements, the more aesthetically pleasing elements, really that, if you remember, we did some of those nature playgrounds where there was indulations in the ground instead of a red, white, and blue slide and swings, and there were, that spray plaza that looks more like what's on the bottom instead of the spray plaza with the buckets and the different elements like that.
So I know that this is not the purpose of this meeting, so I want to preface my statement with that, but I think it's important because the public is going to be tuning into this, that we have at some point discussion about the existing fields and areas that are there and what our plan would be. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but for instance, there are tennis courts there. There's nothing on this page about tennis courts. There's a hockey rink there. There's nothing on this page about hockey rink. There's baseball fields there. We can't do everything with this park, but we've got to make sure that we're making all those considerations and communicating appropriately with that. Personally, and I've said this many times, I'm not interested in losing amenities that we currently have without replacing them in an appropriate manner before or concurrently. So that's just a personal
I think
statement.
that's a great point to start about. But I think at the end of tonight, if we believe you're going, okay, we have this goal to take to the public, which is important, to get their input on how they perceive this part of the development. And I think part of that is in any type of public input we show from now on is going to have those things you listed with a solution to them, whether it's somewhere in this park or somewhere else, and say, this is how we are handling this. Yes, we're taking out 4 fields from the 50s, I'm guessing, or how does somebody know?
They're not allowed. But we're replacing them with additional field usage space in Community and Springfield.
And yes,
Sherwood.
the idea of the inline skating is not going to be here anymore. That ultimately is the decision, but this is where it is going to be. And same thing, yes, when the pickleball probably should have a slash tennis court, I think anytime, unless this desire is, okay, let's do something neat. Let's create a pickleball only location, which may be something we want to do too. So it's easy to convert them, but I think the tennis, the true tennis people probably don't like.
Well, we don't need to have tennis courts that are usable. We need separate pickleball courts for tennis courts.
And if we
Whether
need-
it's here or somewhere else, we have to have them separate. But I just want to make sure we're not excluding tennis also.
And I think, yeah, because what we want to do is get y'all's opinion on, once we get these ideas, do we go back and create a concept based on the current program, get y'all's onboarding, and then go take it to the public for input as more of a, this is not final yet, we want y'all's input on this is where it's going, or do we want to open it up? And sometimes we'll do this, we'll have a big public meeting, people come in, hey, what do you like, let's all put it down, and most people like this. And then go back and do some design work. I think we've done this enough to kind of know what we want. I guess that's what I want to hear from you. How do we want to take this to the public? Is it more in a, sorry, is it more focus group? You know, these workshops, surveys, do we do something on the web, social media, do we do an event in the park? How do we get this out there so that it is a true public input? And that's important to us. We don't want to, y'all heard me say this before, you know, we design parks all the time. This isn't my park, this is Brad's park, and this is going to be all. So we care, but at the same time, I step out and say, well, we don't care what's in the park. We just want to make it the best of what y'all decide to get there. So how do we help y'all make those decisions?
There's a large, tool bag of public input strategies. You've been around us enough to see different applications of that, but we wanted to bring that to you today just to see what were those thoughts, what's been successful, what do you feel like, the online survey helps, or do you think going to people at a special event would be better, or, what are those thoughts just in terms of engaging for this part? A lot of times on a focused, master plan or concept design, coming up with a focus group of, specific users, whether it's downtown residents, whether it's people, specifically involved in this site. So that's kind of, this next slide. I mean, we can go back to the program items too throughout the meeting, but, talking about that strategy of public engagement is something we want to work on tonight.
Well, what I don't want to see happen is what happened with Kids Kingdom. And I love Kids Kingdom, don't misunderstand that. But I don't want to go to all the schools and have kids draw what they want in the park. I thought that was problematic with Kids Kingdom, and for lots of reasons. But we ended up with a great Kids Kingdom park. Absolutely did. I thought part of the purpose of this meeting was for us to define preliminary parameters. And then we would take that to the public for public input. I don't know if anybody else had any other opinions about that.
No, I agree, and I think we've done, this thing's been through the mill a lot, that I think we kind of, know where some of the things are going to float to the surface. In terms of the public engagement, I think what would really work is, back on your picture, you gotta get people out there.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't use that park very much anymore. A lot of people don't understand what that park is. A lot of people don't understand what the history of that park is. I mean, heck, there used to be a swimming pool there. They don't understand that. So, to me, it's like, how do we showcase maybe what some of those ideas are? Like, I love we just had a deal there with the dog park and the music. That was fantastic. We didn't get as many people there as I would have liked to have seen there, but I think that was something we'll probably pick up as you go. But that's the type of thing that we want to be able to do in a situation down here. So, how do we kind of involve maybe some activities that gets the public out there to interact in that park in the way that we want to see them do? And then, this would be passive recreation area, but there's lots of different ways that you can set up a passive recreation area. You could have some ideas and get people's ideas while they're out there actually interacting with the park in that way. I think that's how, in my opinion, is a good way to get them involved and start to get their buy-in of what this park should be.
So let's expand on that a bit. So in order to get the most effective input from the public in an event scenario, we've had some success in that. recently. Brad might want to go do that a little more in Heath and in the Highland Village recently. So we have some really good techniques that maybe get a little bit more buy-in and input.
Yeah, I mean, to that, whether it's a special event or even just a park tour was one we did recently over in Highland Village. And, we had, the park itself was kind of broken into some character zones that spread out from just the natural features and use areas. So we essentially just walked the park and got to each different location, talked about, what do you like here, what do you not like here, how does the place make you feel, can you hear the highway, can you not hear the highway, I mean, all the items that you would want to know. I mean, we can't answer from this room or another conference room or another from the community center. So, I mean, I see that as a great opportunity for this park. One, it's very accessible to a lot of people, starting to get to parking schedules. So, I mean, to your note of let's go through the program. We're kind of good on the initial program. How do we bring it to the public? I think let's start to propose an event or some sort of walk the park tour event after we go through some of the initial fact finding, some of the initial site inventory analysis. Getting that specific stuff done. We've gone through a lot of that since 2014, so we can kind of hit the ground running. But coming to the public with that type of event, a prepared event, I think we get some great engagement.
Yeah, because you could have it where you can come to the area where, some type of a water feature, I think, out there is important, but, you could have it be more artistic, like what's at Clyde Warren, or it could be more of a typical splash pad, and that's where you can kind of start to get the public's engagement, is you could have poster boards up there of different types of water features and things that are out there, and start to get people's kind of.
But we've already determined here that there's
Yeah.
going to be a water feature,
Yeah.
and
Right.
this is the approximate area space.
and
Right.
yeah,
Okay, so that's exactly. So let's take the program that we've identified, get some scenarios of how this can work on the site. Let them choose from that, and in doing so, inform them on how the elements that are being relocated are being accomplished.
Yes.
So all these decisions have already been on paper somewhere, and we're getting the input from that, so that we know how. Like, this is a good example. Do you like the water? Do you like a large pond water feature like on this one, or do you like some? You said that the blue's not as blue, but or something a little bit more formal down the bottom, or something more smaller. Or this one has a you said blue at the top. So there's like, what feel are you does the public want in this water feature? Is it something more formal and urban like this, or something a little bit more natural and larger like this?
We can't afford that much space. We need too much of that park for that.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't even know if we need a body of water, but it's some type of a water element.
Let me just say a couple of things on my mind, and they're not features so much, but, we already have a dog park down at the far end. There just needs to be parking close to that dog park. Because a lot of it, older people, bring their dogs out, and it's just, they can't walk that far to get the dog. So it needs to be parking close to that dog park. Now, that could be in conjunction with inline skating or something, But the other thing I would bring out too is today we've got a huge parking lot right at the front door, and that needs to go somewhere.
So that, to me, that's, I mentioned earlier, that the idea, I never can sit still. So this is what we know now that we didn't know when we started, right? So we have these points, and then we're also proposing a shared divided road between the development and the park. Right? And so now, my kids have played baseball out here, practice, and experience it. You got some through traffic, and it breaks up the idea of the park, right? But from an urban design and planning standpoint, we can line this up, and maybe we can extend this road through here. Maybe this one stops here, or maybe it ends up connecting to that, and really taking the vehicles out of the middle of the park and putting them in pods around the corners to have that access for people to certain areas so they're not having to walk the whole park, but not break up the whole feel of it being a park. Because that's, right now, that's what I think is the biggest issue with this. It's just a large park broken up by roads and streets and vehicles and drainage, surface drainage channels. And showing some solutions of how we can accomplish parking and vehicle flow through the site. I think is going to be key. And one is the front door to the park does need to be a parking lot.
Right.
And another thing, I guess, Angie, where's the maintenance facility going to go?
We are phasing out of that location into community park.
Very good, great. And also, when we first started
Yeah, I don't know why you're back there.
the Chamber of Commerce was not located, it was moved to, yeah, so that kind of shows another thing for us to think about.
Are we anticipating that the dog parks stay where they're at and out of the size that they are?
How, are they
That
functioning
would
well?
be the goal, yes, is that they would stay where they are and of the size that they are, since they're already in place.
Now, I could see some future enhancements in, not their own dog parks, you know, probably know this, is, they're not really dog parks, they're people parks, for the dog, with dogs. So, continue to, continue to make it more
People friendly?
people friendly, and I think it's a great idea to turn 2 ball fields into dog parks. The busy was there's a lot of things that are kind of cool about that. But then I think you can start thinking about it in more depth as far as separating some paddocks so you let some breathe. You kind of have within each 2 that you have, a large dog, a small dog, maybe you cut those in half so that they use one per month and flip it over to the other one. But there's things that you can do to enhance those and either embrace them being an old baseball field, like, oh, this is kind of cool, or do you start transitioning into some more urban dog park feel?
Well, the reality of the situation is that whole thing's going to be a dog park, basically, because people are going to have their dogs out there, and just if they want to take them off the leash, they
Oh,
take them
right,
to
this is the place you take off
Yeah.
leash. That's right.
Right.
Well, and that's fitting with its location too, in
Yeah.
the downtown village. But we do want to be able to design that in to one, offer that relief to the other small parks within the village and anywhere else in downtown.
And 2, once that development to the east becomes reality, the number of people that have the dogs and walking distance is going to be a dramatic influence on that dog park. So I think that we will. I mean, technically, we've had it down there a few times, but whatever that phase 4 lot D, and even really all of it, just having it accessible to that is going to be extremely key. I like when I see it closer to downtown, from the walkability of downtown to a dog park, but over time, I think it'll be time.
I think the thing fully develops, because it's going to be scattered with different units there. You have the houses on the back. I mean, yeah, you could have 2 big dog parks right next to each other, but you could also have multiple small dog parks kind of scattered throughout. To your point, I mean, it's that's an off-leash area. And so to Brownie's point, if you put that back there, I don't know how that barrier is going to work with that road that's eventually going to be there. But having a road that goes right through the middle of the park is not what we need here. And you have to be able to allow people to get to the designated off-leash park, dog park, whatever you want to call it. So you have to have that close to parking. So I don't know if long-term that's where they stay. Now, I mean, obviously this is multiple phases that's going to happen, but I think really the question is what's a must in phase 1? So that's going to have to help drive some of this design a little bit. Is what do we want to do in phase 1? How does that get designed into phase 1, and then what can wait? So to me, dog park is easy to wait till maybe a phase 2 or 3 because we already have one. But if it's really important that gets put up into the front, what does that move back? So that phasing thing throws a little bit of a wrench, I think, into things because, to me, a splash park might be pretty important for phase 1. Somebody else, it might be a dog park for phase 1.
And what what's important, I think, is often, and I'll say it again, if we're taking assets away, we've got to put them back in phase one.
Yeah.
It's got to be funded. So, where are you anticipating putting the hockey rink?
We are exploring options at community park to get the majority of our association-oriented sports activities to community park. We have adult softball, we have baseball, we have soccer. So we're looking at options. Aaron's already met with a couple people to look at options to possibly put that at community park where we have plenty of assets and plenty of parking
And how would
easy
you fund it?
access. So we have some funding for sports builds in our bond funds that we might be able to use in joint connection with the hockey league. They have some money to put into building a new rink as well.
That brings line, so
So
once you take it over, it's
fencing and that type of stuff, that's really where they want to come in and look at what kind of panels can they put in and different things like that. So we would do that in conjunction with them. We do have to be careful about taking them out of business for a season because it will seriously hurt their, I mean, with 100 athletes that participate in the sport, it would seriously damage. And we do have some other temporary rinks that we could transition to. We've done that in the past, but what we're looking at currently is the ability to move that to where the rest of our sports take place, which is good.
And I saw some email, and I apologize, I don't remember where it was, but, you know, this many kids are using it, and then this many are Rowlett residents, and this many adults. I want to be really careful about that. We have so few amenities in this community for middle-aged kids, for young, what's the?
Middle school kids.
Middle school, tween teenage, we cannot take those assets away.
especially that one, because we do get, because there's not very many inline hockey rinks in this
Right.
DFW area.
Right.
We get people who continually come down here and
Yeah,
play, it's crazy. Lots of people do.
So Brad has another council meeting in another city.
Oh, yeah.
He has to go. So Brad, do you have anything else you need to add?
No, we're excited to get this rolling again. No, and I think defining that public engagement is going to be, key to come up with and just make sure we're all on the same page and being able to, get that purposeful engagement. I mean, that's our favorite part of it too.
So it seems like in the one we did in Howard Village, before the walk around was we had a food truck come out. Same thing if we did this at Eat, and we had 200 people.
Yeah.
It was a big success.
Yeah.
And it was because, I forget who was it, Moonot?
Eve, we had In-N-Out.
In-N-Out Burger. They donated it.
Yeah.
And we got it.
I mean, any type of food event could be good.
And there was a really large social media push too.
Yeah.
And the word got out that, it happened. It was like, come, tell us what you think.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of far along in some of those concepts where, we're putting them out there and let people comment on, hey, what do you like about this online? That's pretty good feedback. Something we might want to explore, but that's what I'd like to see happen is let us churn on a little bit, develop some concepts with multiple solutions, and let the public choose what they like from those solutions. But that's ultimately what we did at Scenic Point Park. We had 3 or 4 concepts that they actually
I've got to get on the road.
came and gave public input to, which ultimately led to phase 1 of Scenic Point Park, which was the connectivity to Mount Ridge. That seems to have had some success. I just always like to see more people.
So can you go back to your list of stuff? So can all this fit?
Yes. And I say that because I just got through building a project that's the most over-programmed project I've ever done, the smallest piece of property. And it's in Mansfield at Chandler Park. It was 7 acres. We had a fishing pond, a loop trail, a splash pad, sand volleyball, 2 half-court basketball, 2 playgrounds, a restroom, 5 pavilions, a skate park, and tennis courts.
Did it have parking?
and it had about 24 parking spaces. It was adjacent to a junior high. So there was some shared parking, which helped.
Wow.
And it was
So-
Acres?
seven and a half acres.
And how big is this space?
It sounds
Double.
So, what are you thinking right now in regards to number of tennis courts and pickleball courts? Because I have an opinion.
What do you think? What do you think, Mayor?
What do we have right now?
So right now we have two dedicated, we have 2 tennis courts and we have 4 pickleball courts. Now, we have 4 tennis courts where 2 are used by tennis and 2 are used by 4 pickleball courts. So,
And I'd like to see 8 dedicated pickleball courts and 4 tennis courts, but I don't know that they'll fit in the park.
We're way over programmed already with all that. I said, I think we're way over programmed already with all that.
That's what I'm saying, that's why I'm mentioning it, because I want to see if it fits.
I don't think you are. I mean, I would be curious to see how that would fit into that area. You might mean that your dog parks get a little bit smaller or something towards the park back, but a lot of that stuff is all together in one. It's one big green open space. You know, your landform play, natural traditional playground area is a pretty small area. Your trail essentially goes around. Your spray ground is a smaller area.
well, and those non-traditional playground areas can follow your trail too. So you might not take up a dedicated space for a playground. It follows more of the trail, so that while mom's walking the trail, the kid is having those interactions along the way.
And I can see the farmer's market, that's looking more like a season.
That's,
Yeah,
that's
so
what
you
parking
just
lot
have
is.
you have your big open areas.
Yeah.
You know,
Where you can have a farmer's market, or you can have food trucks park, or you can have your stage in, or you can have a number of different things happening.
What do you think's facing Main Street?
I think it's a piece of architecture, something that helps set the edge. I don't know what that is, I don't know if it's a, my thought is, sometimes whenever you're outside of a park or outside of a space and you pass beside something or through something, it changes your perception of where you are. So as you're going, we work the link between downtown and George Bush, ultimately the high school and even part of the east, that's being constructed now, right? And so that idea, we've already kind of planned for that urban edge to be set on the south side of Main Street at Herfurth Park. Now, does that mean that's where the back of a large, an architectural piece that transforms into a farmer's market, transforms into an event stage, that transforms into something, but something architectural that helps set that edge, gives visual prominence as you're coming up and down Main Street. There's something special about that.
We go back to the map. The one that has the development. So what is the barrier, the boundary between the park and the development? What's going to be there?
That's a divided two-lane divided with parallel parking or park
With
street
parallel
parking.
parking. So that edge of that park right there is going to be edging onto the street, what's going to have parallel parking. Okay.
Either angled or parallel. I think angled.
What's the angle?
Angled.
And is that all apartments, or is there any commercial that's in there?
Yeah, there's commercial.
Is there is
I
commercial?
think you're right, on the global side?
Yeah.
No, there's commercial there.
There is
too.
commercial.
And-
So what I envision that kind of being on that side, which would be really cool, is almost like a Clyde Warren Park, where you've got trees down there, you've got benches that are out there, and then just like at Clyde Warren on the other side, you've got restaurants, and you got other things over there. And you could have crossover areas, see, that's where you would have your spray park, and that's where you want restaurants to start setting up, where your food trucks could park along that area. And then there's tables all the way down there, or you can have areas where people can rent games, or there's all kinds of things. Because I mean, to me, yeah, Main Street, I hear what you're saying, Mayor, where you're gonna come, but that's gonna end up being the front door to that park. Because it's kind of a street that borders the entire thing. You still want something that accentuates it off of Main, you're exactly
You almost have
right.
to play off the chamber on that.
You do, a little bit, but that's gonna be your front door. Because that's how people are gonna get to that park. They're gonna come down Main Street, they're gonna turn down whatever road that's gonna end up being called, and that's how they're gonna access that park.
Called Brownie Drive.
Brownie Drive, you know, your cigar bar right
I think
there.
that's something, right?
So,
So what does that urban form look like on the ground level of block B, I guess not block B, but phase 4 and phase 2. Do we know yet? Do we how tall the buildings are? I think they were 7 feet.
Yeah, no, some of them are pretty tall, but I don't, yeah, I think we're talking about 5 to 7 stories at the most. I'm not even sure, Knowles didn't hear, obviously, but.
There's a hotel that's gonna be there and commercial mixed use.
Yeah, but it's not like a 20-story
Yeah.
hotel. I want to say it's somewhat consistent with what downtown is, so I really would say more like 4 to 5, not really more than 5.
Maybe it was 5. That's going to be important to the edge.
Yeah, it's gonna be really, I'm gonna do like you, walk a little bit, and I think you have one that has it, but you know, you're gonna wanna keep some form of barrier here, that, get rid of the parking, but that's some type of promenade that you could walk. So you have this connection, and then your pickleball, tennis court, or whatever could be up in that area, and then you could start to move some of your playground features and your walking trail back here, you get rid of all this, and then this is just all green space. It's just all passive recreation green space. It's got a trail that goes around. What would be really, really cool is you would just get a lot of use. You just tie it into that development, so it becomes a true urban park, isolate it, let it flow into the development.
So Royal Middle School, is that right? You know, is there idea of lot of land?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been in Texas for 20 years, I still ain't get there. Does that road become something that turns and goes up north and kind of takes up some of the space that used to be the maintenance yard and have that traffic flow that way, and then you go south down to water? What's the,
You want to get up and walk? We're a little confused what you're asking.
Well,
this is curvy, right? That moves through
I
here.
think this works.
Yeah, that's curvy up there.
So I mean, does it, if, working with the school district, and it looks like their football
That's their
facilities
football field
are
right
here,
there.
but I
That's their football field.
don't know what they're doing at this corner, but
It's just open space.
if we can, if we can start to align something through here and get through here, then that really, we'll still maybe have a vehicle entry here, maybe keep some parking centrally located here, but then say build around that. But bringing up the two schools is important because sometimes I think that we
I'm fine. I don't know, just my opinion is that parking in the middle doesn't need to be there. You're gonna have all that parking on the outside.
Well,
and
the
you're
road
gonna
comes
close
through
that.
somehow.
I agree.
Why does the road have
So, I don't know why you don't build straight through here.
a road
Yeah,
or?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about a road.
It really is.
Yeah, I wanna get rid of it.
I know, but hang on for a minute, because here's the thing, first off, you're gonna be able to put parking on either side. So now maybe you don't need the big parking lot, so to speak. You're gonna have it along the side here too. And there needs to be, I mean, whereas you can do that, this really isn't that wide of a spot. So if people come here and park here and walk over here to enjoy the facilities, that's fine. Or coming down here, I think you flow, it's so long, we need something like that. I think that crosses over. And then you've got a trail system that you can put into. I think this is important. Maybe not as much this one. Although, once you got that space down there too, maybe. But I really think at least some sort of cross needs to be done. And I think if you do it, I don't think you have to have quite as much parking.
Do you want to do that?
I did. We're organizing.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think you keep it passive and you walk it, you get
Yeah.
rid of the streets. Streets divide things.
I think you would
And
negatively affect the
and that
nice
divides now the park. Where
Well,
you could have this big.
You would negatively affect the school because the school uses that for school bus access. They come through the park.
I just think it probably could be a problem
But I
with
think
dividing.
that's made, it's not made to be school bus, it's just they use it because it's there.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they should be.
They'll have to find another.
Then they're gonna start coming through the neighborhood instead of street.
You know what, I'm not, it's fine, that's what neighborhoods are for. You live by a school, you don't need a bus cutting through a park. To me, roads divide things, and if you go back and you look, roads divide things. It's like you put a road there, You've now divided
You've divided
this
the park in
14
two.
acre park into
Yeah.
7 acre parks.
I agree with you.
I agree with that as well.
It's a park,
So-
it's one park.
I think you keep it a walking promenade, and so you have that walking deal, and that's kind of, you can do that. And maybe that's where you put up like, and I think you have one picture where that's kind of where your amphitheater might have been. So maybe that's an area where you set up your amphitheater, but it's a passive divide, not a car divide.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know.
Maybe a walking promenade wide enough that cars can go.
For special events when we have to get traffic through, and a house out there.
And I can look for UTV.
So could you
Hang
run
on,
a
guys, we
road?
got too many people talking all at once.
Were you saying to run a road up here
To
to be
consider taking,
That's what he was talking
yeah,
about.
I don't think you could probably get away with the football field, but the way that that's configured, you might could work something out there where you could get a radius to cut their corner. But also too, I think we want to make sure that, I know that I'm looking forward to, I hear these two ideas, and there's some pretty creative things out there now to where maybe it goes back to some particular site constraints as far as elevations and low points of drainage. But what if you ran a halfway sunken street through there, but still were to develop a completely park that went over it, and you just on the top,
Cha-ching.
it's a lot of, yeah, it's money. But
Oh, yeah.
it's a solution.
We're broke.
Right, but I mean, that's part of the master planning process.
Yeah, but I also think we need to be realistic. We don't need to develop something that phase 6 is never gonna happen because it's so, you know, we got a dog park already, we need to utilize that asset. We got,
One last pitch. And that is, at least for me, you're gonna have this road go all the way through, all the way down to Miller. And I think that satisfies or catches a lot of the traffic, the people that need to go through there. But at the same time, you know, and I understand about splitting the park in half, but there needs to be some sort, if all you're gonna rely on is people parking here and they have to walk to everything, I think you're gonna have somewhat of an issue.
I don't think we can get rid of parking down there by the dog park.
I don't like the idea of doing this and then having two roads like that.
Well, Clyde Warren works out just fine. You gotta walk to get there. You get a parking
What's
spot.
the,
Warren's
Brian,
not-
so the area south of where the dog park now is, that parcel.
Yeah, I
That
think, is
parcel.
that commercials, am I know?
the one's just south? I
Yeah.
think it's school. Is that not the?
Yeah, that's
which
well.
one?
Oh, yeah.
Is
right.
that-
Yeah, right down there.
I think it goes all the way up there.
Yeah, we had that sewer line they had to come through there.
So the chance of putting a road on that south end, so you're now covered on 3 sides by roads, would probably not happen, because that's school.
Well,
Because see, now you're not dividing the park.
Well, that's
If
cool.
you, if you connected that road there to get to your point, so you have some cross access. Now you've got a road on the south side, the north side, and on the complete east side.
On the south side of the park.
And now but you're not dividing it with a road, and you're surrounded.
Well, certainly, dividing it with a road with parking really separates it.
But you could keep, I would be for not putting a road there, but if we
I
had to
understand.
have a
I
road
get rid of
there for
parking.
connection, you could do a road there.
well, okay, so if this is gonna be 2 lane divided and all that, maybe you don't do that, except you add the parallel parking or something, but I don't know, I still like that idea, and depending on what would need to happen, I would prefer not to come back here and do it down there.
We may be constrained by what we
Yeah,
have
what you
in
can
place
do.
today.
But you could then leave with that road there, you could leave the parking lot there by the dog park, if that's where the dog park ends
Right.
up staying, you keep that.
Yeah, you keep that parking on the
You
south
keep
side.
that whole parking on the south side. But you really don't need that road going
And
through,
you
because you
pro-
don't need the extra parking.
Yeah, when you program other stuff on the south side that works well with the dog park, the splash park, the playground, the dog park, so families can congregate there.
Your restaurant, maybe your pickleball.
I like the idea of having a splash park closer to Main Street.
I agree.
I like that idea too, I really do.
That's not by the
It can
dog
serve
park.
as a good transition too, and it can be multi-purpose. If you do the more aesthetically pleasing instead of the bucket, right? So it can be event space.
Right.
You think about the harbor as that round
Well, you
splash.
could have a water feature at the front and a splash park at the back.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
You know, water features aren't necessarily to jump in, but splash parks are. I just think it's important if we're going to keep the dog parks back there that we have others, the other family-oriented stuff back there with it. And, you know, having a water feature at the entrance is much better than having a splash park with people in bathing suits on Main Street.
Yeah, that's
True.
People aren't going to want to do that.
True.
They're going to want to be back in the corner.
I don't want to see speakers.
So I'm going to say it because Debbie's not here, and Debbie and I always said this every single time is, you know, what do we think about a skate park?
Crickets.
The question is this the right location? With
Well-
its new urban feel.
Well, I mean, centralized in the city of Rowlett is the right place for a skate park. You know, is it at, you know, Pecan Grove versus Herfurth, but it's certainly not a community park.
Right, yeah.
I'd love to have a skate park in the city of Rowlett. I'd love to have more entertainment for our
I think
tweeners.
having one somewhere is a good idea.
Those go 2 or 3 ways too. You can design them, they're regional, people drive around, they do their bowl shapes, and they get real creative, they're linear parks, and they become this focused skate park. Or you can design them to where they almost look like city hall steps with rails, and it's intended for them to use those steps and those rails versus the real ones. You know,
I've always thought Isaac Scruggs would be a great place for a skate park.
Yeah.
Got all that open land.
Access from cheese.
But it's linear, linear. We might be get some additional.
We're not gonna let you sit over there if you start with.
I don't want to see Brownie in the Speedo.
Okay, thanks for sharing.
Especially not on Main Street.
Sometimes maybe
I'm
you
gonna wear a
should.
Speedo and I'm gonna get one of them twirling signs that stand out front saying, it's in here.
You think that's gonna attract people?
Oh, yeah.
So certainly get rid of
Come in.
Is this helping?
This is helping. This is fantastic.
Good.
Just throwing out ideas and just hearing y'all talk about it. It's, I mean, it's already telling me how to get some ideas on paper shoots, decisions to be made based on some things we've seen. How these things work. Or we have 2 solutions proposed. This and this. Seems like we're mainly treating to it not going through the middle, but if it did, we're not going to do the elaborate, expensive green over it. What do they call this thing? Wildlife bridges now? Or scenic river
Yeah.
highways?
Yeah.
I'm thinking the same wildlife bridge with more of a.
I just think we need to spend our money somewhere else.
That's true.
I do too, that is expensive.
Also, I would suggest, I know your job deals with inches and feet, that we know how big the stage is that we're buying. We're buying the stage.
Oh, to go there.
Can she get it into wherever?
And so we want that to be what we plan around, we plan around it more permanent.
I think we need a natural setting
Yeah.
stage area, not a
I like
metal
the idea of
stand.
an amphitheater of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect thing for you.
And that was going to be my
Yes.
next
Nice
sculpture.
green area.
It
You
is.
have
Yeah.
Concerts down there, that's where you do
Yeah.
your concerts on Main.
Not our temporary stage that we set up.
No, this is something new and.
And you don't even know the stage until somebody performs.
Exactly.
Exactly. It forms into that.
And with burning and stuff like
Sorry,
that,
Bernie.
you could really make something natural through there and something
Yeah.
very attractive, and, you know, people can bring blankets instead of having to, you know.
Keep your north side all that, because you're gonna be pulling people from downtown, they can also come walking down that way, and all your recreation, your pickleball courts, your golf parks, your more traditional, spray park, whatever would be on the south side.
But we would use the bot stage for like the big events like fireworks and Maine, right? So that we don't waste our money.
Yeah, there's no way to accommodate every concert you're gonna have, right? So a
Right.
summer concert might use a smaller stage where your fireworks on Main has to have a certain kind of look. They have to have a gigantic stage.
Think of it, right, we could have a festival there, we have one band on one.
Yeah.
And you
Oh,
set
Where you
that-
might
you set
put your
the-
big stage down at the bottom and
Yeah.
have music this way and
Plenty
You
of
then.
room.
got, you got multiple different.
Yeah.
That's going to be a plus rise.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Fleetwood Mac on one side.
That's right.
Bonnie Raitt on the other.
Abba,
Oh, Bonnie Raitt, okay.
Ah,
I actually
yeah.
go to those. They're impressive.
So, one thing I see this, every time I go out there, it just seems so flat, which is the general nature of this area. Or there's something in my mind that tells me that this needs to have landform throughout the whole thing. That there's elevation change, and you're either elevating, looking down, things happening, you're seeing things happening, but I think it just really needs to have some elevation change to make it a little bit more interesting. Than just, okay, we got this flat canvas and we just put plopping things on it. I think we need to carve and build up and get some natural drainage channels going through it.
Yeah, Michael, you could play off of that,
Yeah.
you know, and, I think that could be a great idea.
And I wouldn't even mind almost where showing is to back off a little bit of the street in this area here. You know, maybe if you back off of this, so this green space bleeds more into this, and they feel a lot more synergy.
Yeah.
Because right now we're blocking off this other green. But if we stopped our angle parking here and here, make this more bridge-like and
Yeah.
let the green grow through it, that could be a lot more powerful. And I'd really like to get with these guys.
Yeah, you need to get with Jim Grabbing Horses to get with these guys.
That'd be
Yeah.
really
As
cool.
far as I know, this is the most current
It is.
plan that's out there, so I don't know if they've developed that any farther, but I'd like to encourage them to.
I don't think we can underestimate Matt's point of what is the entrance to this park. And I think he's right, probably, it is that middle section, but we need to make sure, we need to understand exactly what those plans are.
Yeah. Because
That's gonna program everything for you.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about
Yeah.
the scale of the buildings and what's happening at street level. Is it leasing centers? Is it restaurants that bleed out onto the street? Or is it back of house? What are they considering
Yeah.
doing with their architecture next to this park? We really need to encourage them to, yes, they probably think George Bush and the visibility of what is going on there, but it needs
That's
to
got
be,
power right there. I
it
think.
needs to be a park.
Maybe you see little cafes, little
Yeah.
coffee places, restaurants, and things like that that just pop up all along there.
Yeah, activating spaces. I mean, that's what this is all about. How do we make this as active as we can, that's reasonable, so that.
They don't have any more further design works. I mean, there are certainly like utilities out there.
Yeah, actually, they do. I mean, there's some stuff that we could use, starting to see. Now, I will tell you that most of their work right now, other than the drainage, because they have to solve for that, is up in those top two blocks. I don't know that the south part is as fleshed out as the north part is.
Yeah, that's our phase one. Is the am I correct? In phase one was our first is going to be the one part of Herfurth part two, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
And they definitely, I mean, see the value of the park as an amenity for their development. So, I mean, I would think they would be open to working.
Well, that's something we can set up. I can work with Daniel now that they're into that development phase. To meet, Michael, to meet with them and make sure exactly what that looks like and what future phases look like.
I mean, that's an economic development tool right there, because I could see us partnering with all the local businesses and the apartments over there, and having a festival literally where you close down that street, and now that becomes a walking promenade, and you put the lights and stuff on it, and you make that a huge draw, and I think that would be really
Yeah.
cool. I would want to sell it to them all day if they're trying to get. Yeah, food trucks too.
You close it down for food trucks.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta be careful with that, but extend it all the way. This is. Yes. So what are you seeing in some parks that are not on our list?
Like park programming elements. Microscope. All right, so one thing I think would be really beneficial to this is what is that one signature piece?
Brian,
What is that one signature piece that's iconic, like a public park, that you have to have your picture taken by this? That's what we're seeing really draws people to this space. I mean, no matter how large the park is or how small the park is. You can go, just throw out two icons, just the Bean and Millennial in Chicago. Everybody knows where that Bean is. The eyeball that we did in downtown Dallas, have y'all seen that? You have to go get your picture made with this 30-foot eyeball behind you. It's the craziest thing in the meeting. You believe me, you put a 30-foot eyeball in the middle of a urban square, like it been plucked out of the sky and just kind of bounced in and put this little wave in the ground, but everybody gets a picture made from that piece of artwork.
So I've brought this up before, not necessarily with you, Michael, but I visited, where was it? A public art area in Miami, where, you know, it's just the flat wall murals, and they invite artists to come in and change it out every 6 months. It takes very little space because it's just flat,
Right, think about,
artistic walls.
think about the existing,
What is that called?
was it T-ball? Not T-ball, wiffle ball field y'all have out there. Isn't there a wall out there now? I mean, you almost kind of have, you can almost program some of that stuff in there. Not saying that's the solution, but I think those are things that I'm talking about, that these types of public parks want, is that interaction with people.
Moving in lockdown for so cool.
You asking me? It's the walls of
Wynwood Walls.
Linwood Walls. Which is blocks and blocks and blocks of downtown area, the arts district of Miami. But just a, you know, small version of that.
It'd be kind of cool.
But to your point, Tim, whether it's a wall or something, it's something that draws people down there that, you know,
It's just the simplest thing.
sets this park aside from other parks, making something unique about it so that it drives people down there, so that they can walk when they get there. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Linwood Walls. And they change them out, like, I think every 6 months, maybe every 9 months, something like that. And it attracts so many people to that area.
No, talk about just the landscape value of the trees and canopy and the scale of the trees in the park is going to be beneficial. So doing the stuff you don't see to make those thrive, I don't have a good idea of what the soil is like out here. I don't think it's draining well. This maybe some issues. So maybe some soil amendments that may need to occur will make it successful long term.
Now, one of the things I was thinking about is the amount of trees and the type of trees, because the fireworks that we do, I don't know if it would block views from that, or is this something to think about?
I think we have to put the fireworks above the tree lines anyway. You know, sort of.
Well, we got 4-story buildings on one side of the park anyway. So
Yeah, that's true.
instead of a block it, 7-story hotels, so,
No, on top of the water tower.
but shoot them off of the wall, on top of the wall.
I'll get back to you on that.
Like that bridge in Australia that shoots them off of the bridge.
So I'd ask the question, what else? Anything
All right,
else?
so, I mean, the idea of developing some type of a third-party operator to do food service, to have adult beverages, that draw people to the park, that's, you know, it becomes a discussion with adjacent users. You don't want to be competing too much with the businesses you're trying to lure into the development adjacent, but we have seen some success with cities embracing the third-party operator for food service and beverage.
I love that idea. I mean, we already do that downtown, but it's usually event driven. We have an event, and then you have food trucks and stuff like that. Herfurth Park is the perfect place to do that kind of stuff. But again, I'm thinking more event driven. So when you say third party, is somebody to manage that, or are you just talking about when we have an event?
I'm just thinking of 365 day a year, somebody has a facility out there where you know you can go to, say, maybe it's Jersey or San Diego, there's a pier, it's a public pier, but on that pier is a corn dog stand or something. That, you know, when you have enough volume of people coming to the place, is there the opportunity to provide, you know, is it a coffee shop? Is it a facility that is on site that gets people there because they're buying kolaches or donuts in the morning and maybe a sandwich in the afternoon? Is there a third party that comes in and leases space in y'all's park to provide that all year long?
I was just in Baton Rouge, Brian, and they have what they call the Garden Cafe. So breakfast is quick breakfast sandwiches, you can pull up, park, and then, you know, maybe lunch was sandwiches and soups, and they're only open until about 4 o'clock, and then they're absolutely open during events and stuff. It was at their botanical garden. And it's a very small, very cool building that had a cafe on one side, and they just partner with a third-party vendor to do stuff all the time. So you have food trucks during events, but this way, it drew people from the library, which is down the street just a ways, and they would come and bring their books. There were, you know, students in there doing homework and eating a quick lunch, and that's kind of how they had done it as well.
I think that might be, I think it's a great idea, and I've seen it work, lots of people do that. And it might be something you want to do at the beginning, but I really think you need to go talk to.
We need
these
to activate
guys.
that.
We need to activate this and get that going, because that might completely change what their thought process is. 'Cause I would hope that we would be put out of business really quick, and that people are opening businesses all over, and then, you know, everybody that's living in those, whether they're living over here in the neighborhood or living over there, getting their coffee, and they're sitting there at the park, and they're out there walking that trail in the morning, and sitting there having their coffee, you know, at the table. That I would love to just see it activate.
For our discussions, I think we want to focus on the quick wins that are less expensive, that make this feel like a more urban park. And then we hit the critical mass of people to support some of the other things we're discussing. Then that will come naturally, but I want to have them in our mind that they kind of thought through so that we don't design ourselves out of that in the future.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay, we'll get some groans, but bear with me. Something like a carousel or a Ferris wheel?
Ooh, I like that.
Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel.
We got one in Dallas.
It's only open 3-4 weeks of the year, right?
Yeah.
Is that thing turning all the time?
There's a little bit of a,
It's a joke. It's a joke.
a little bit of a I won't say. But I don't know, I think a carousel would be really cool. Unique attraction. No liability.
You know, do all,
No
Third party.
operating costs.
New Orleans has a carousel down in one of their parks. I mean, we always, every time we go down to New Orleans, I mean, what do?
Take a picture on the
Do we eat
carousel.
beignets down in the French Quarter,
Maybe we
and
should
then we go out to
have
that with the kids, it's historical.
That sounds like a plan.
You know, there was some other park stuff to do, but that was something we always did.
Let's put that right next to the chamber.
Yes, that next to the chamber.
All day long.
Out there, yeah. And that's my run.
You're not you.
Nice.
Michael runs the chamber.
I just think that'd be kind of unique.
I think it goes back to your unique, something that's just unique, that sets it apart, that it draws, you know, somebody into it. You know.
People of all ages like carousels.
What's that?
People of all ages like carousels.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
I like to see
the music.
Yeah.
All right, I got a question for y'all then. Talk about carousel. That to me, that brings back like thoughts and memories of time gone past. Is this park, if y'all kind of, you were taught there's, hey, is this a kind of historic park that's been here forever and the town built up around it? Or is this more of a modern, clean, futuristic, more future versus more past when it comes to architecture and things like that? What do y'all see this being?
Well, when you look at, you gotta look at the surrounding area. You got, single-family homes, you got schools, you got Main Street and churches. And so you gotta really look at the character of the development on the east side, because everything else doesn't really define itself as to a character.
Right.
So it might be a character in its own.
I don't think it's gonna be
No.
historic type stuff.
I don't think it has to be. I think down here, we really wanted that focus. I don't think that has to be, particularly the mayor made a really good point about the global side. It's not gonna be. And so, and the single family kind of allows for a transition until you actually get to what would be more historical downtown. I don't think it has to be. I do think it needs to be a place, we talked about one time, is this the kind of park that people that live in this area will walk to? Well, certainly that is one of the answers. But is it also attractions people will drive to? The dog park is, that's where people go, So I like the idea of having access to people who want to go to this park, and it may not be in their neighborhood, but they want to go to that park. And they're willing to drive there and to see unique features or whatever that makes them want to go down there, for that purpose. Whether it's an event, like we've talked about, or, maybe something cool like, some, permanent, eating arrangement, or even with the, kind of like what you were thinking about earlier, something that just, that keeps people going there every day, to some extent, and not just occasionally.
So one thing that, not that it's July 15th, but shade is always one of the biggest issues we deal with, whether it's on playgrounds.
Shaded pickleball courts, by the way. I'm not kidding.
So, that the shade becomes expensive, so that's why I keep going back to the tree issue, that we should buy some, not just cause massive or anything.
And he has his tree shirt on, did you notice?
Right. But it's a real thing. You
I'll
get-
leave trees.
You gotta have lots of trees.
Yeah, shade is a big deal. We found that out with our playgrounds, that, you can't use them half the year if you don't have some shade.
And I think you're using big trees. And when you talk about playgrounds and all these programming elements that we kind of honed in on, to me, this is very multi-generational, and that's got to be key. You can't just design a play area for the kids if you don't have enough seating and shade and where the caregivers want to be there long enough for the kids to have any type of experience. If you focus on the people who are taking care of the kids, it's amazing how much longer those kids will stay out there.
And what we're hearing, as national trends are, parents go out and walk the park, but they want to be able to see their kids all the time.
Yeah.
So those play elements scattered as opposed to a playground are becoming huge, because I can walk and my child can play right here and I can see them, and then as I go, they move, and there's undulations, and then there's stepping stones, and there's these very natural type play as opposed to swings and slides that we absolutely have at other parks, but aren't as common at regional parks anymore, because parents want to be able to see their kids while they walk. And they're going to go to a park like this that has a much longer walking trail and take advantage of that and still be able to see, you see a lot of loop trails. So I can walk in a circle and I always see my kid, but they don't have to be attached to me anymore. So,
And the shaded playgrounds, again, my story is the original Kids Kingdom is during the middle of the summer, and my granddaughter was little then, and everyone in the whole park would end up huddled in the sandbox because it was the only place that had shade, the caregivers, the kids, and we're all right here. It's a huge park, and we're just looking for shade.
Another trend we see, which is not going to happen here, is the drone racing. You ever seen that? The cities and parks will set up these these courses, they will race their drones through. So if you think of outdoor activities, that's kind of one that we see that's new. And even the whole digital side of things, there's some things we've seen where
That's what I want.
scooters.
E-scooters.
All right, so let's talk about those. What is y'all's opinions right now on any type of sharing of the scooters, bikes? What's y'all's temperature with the peripheral from Dallas and bike sharing can last long? Scooter thing is kind of hanging on some. What has been y'all's experience so far?
We saw one in town the other day.
Yeah.
Things like this are going to make those types of ways to get around a lot more prevalent because people, hey, I'll go up to Rowlett, I'll get off at our station, get on a scooter, and I'll go to the park. I might not walk it, but if I know, to me, that's the distance from the dark station to this park is almost a critical distance to walk or not walk. Right?
As long as they have a docking station down there. Docking station. That's very important.
Yeah, what you're saying, Michael, is that it's right on the margin of whether people
How far?
walk that far.
Yeah.
So any type of a alternative transportation route,
Good point.
maybe something to think about.
Good point. Could dock something at Dart or dock something at Herfurth. It's not a bad point.
And I think another thing that we need to keep considering is adjacent to the school, when the new Main Street gets completed, you can see the cow path now of kids walking to the school back and forth. When we build this, how great would it be to see a bunch of kids hanging out in, public park.
Oh, my
As
carousel.
opposed to the library.
That makes me nervous for the carousel.
The cows we had, we did the McKinney Tennis Center, and inside the tennis center we had a for sale snacks and drinks and restrooms. And then 10 years later, 5 years later, the city built a skate park next to the tennis facility. All of a sudden, closest restroom, and they would come in and spend money at the concession, but they'd also steal stuff out of the pro shop. So they started having to, they didn't want them to come, all the kids come in and use their restrooms, they put keypads on the restrooms to keep them out. They wanted to keep the concession open so they come in and spend their money, and it became a pretty weird dynamic and conflict of how you place these uses. So kids, like you're talking about, going back and forth to the high school, after school, what is keeping them in the park being productive versus being in the park being destructive?
Michael, that's probably the best point that's been brought up this whole evening. That is so important. I mean, right now, we've got so much traffic going into the library, and I don't know the answer, but that's a really important question.
A skate park does need to be thought of.
Well, that's why I've always thought a skate park
Skate
there would
park
be
might
good.
be good to go there, along with your third-party concession stand.
Yeah,
Because they're going to go to this park.
because the ones who don't skate or watch,
Yeah.
buy concessions.
Or playing the splash pad.
Yeah, right.
It's interesting.
I'd say, maybe a couple, cameras could prevent some crazy activity down there. But that only does so much.
We found kind of the best deterrent of is more usage, more people. You get the residential built up beside it, and you always have eyes on it, but it does help a lot. We still want to provide that space for them to come be productive and have a place to go.
What if you did something like Frisbee Park, or, because then it's part of the natural land setting,
So
and it's interactive, and
I tend to recommend those being on their own, because I've been at a park before where they built one of those in the park, with getting back there with Frisbee. Just hanging out, because those things are so inherently all over the place. It's really hard to have other things interact with at this scale.
Well, one of the
Anything
things you
else?
want for this is open space that you can convert into event space easily. And Frisbee golf courses tend to need trees and things to shoot around, right? In order for it to be a great course.
Well, it's a bad idea. But I-
Yeah, no,
I would
it's
rather
just something to
see
think
open
about.
space turn into a pickup, ultimate frisbee game.
Yeah,
Or, you know, family out there.
kind of what they're
having-
already using this downtown space for. I mean, there were people out playing catch the flag the other night when we left downtown, and it was just getting dark. But there was a big group of kids out there just playing in the open space.
So encouraging those type of uses without having it as designated. And maybe, you know, if there was a third-party operator, or if there was a full-time staff member that was kind of out there maintaining a atmosphere that you could come get checkerboards, or come get the large-scale Connect Four deals, or the badminton, or the frisbees, and you had all that stuff easily available to people, would be another way to make sure that the space was activated. That you had as many different outdoor activities that was being managed by somebody. Maybe just a little kiosk that somebody reads them out or checks them out, drop them license, they have to be a resident.
Yeah.
All that. Read the cornhole bag.
Go past the pickleball courts and put up
Croquet
buttons.
pitch.
You know, you think, you know, technology and getting people in spaces, and, you know, is there an opportunity for some type of a e-gaming venue out here where kids can come and compete against each other instead of, you know, over from house to house? Is there a opportunity? Are you seeing a lot of that at like at the rec center, like that need, or in the indoor facility? For,
We don't see too much of them coming in. I mean, Pokemon Go comes and goes, now there's a Harry Potter thing that comes and goes, but
that
that's more
that would be
organic
yeah.
than it's scripted by us.
All right, so I don't know of anything, and y'all may or may not talk about anything, but is there any plans for the land between Herfurth and downtown to the west of Herfurth? Is there any play on that, or is there any thought on that, Brian?
Someday, you know, but right now, it's going to remain residential for a while. But one thing I've seen in a lot of these kind of communities that what happens along Main Street eventually starts to turn more and more commercial.
Yeah.
You know, it'll start off commercial in the residential, and then eventually, you know, it'll be, so that's a longer term transition.
And this is another thing we want to explore. There's no road here where the yellow dash line is. There may be the opportunity for a significant connection from the village to Herfurth this way.
See, I think Angie's right. I mean, I think when we were looking at some, I think it was originally was a trail
Right.
that we were trying to figure out.
That was 12 foot.
More of a pedestrian plaza than just a trail, if you will.
On
So
the left side of your area there, the yellow area, it is now a road. We just opened.
right.
So just catch up where we are. We had all the field work survey done. We've not received the data, the digital data yet, but all the existing edition and survey is complete. So that should be soon. So hopefully that will show up. But kind of going back to pie in the sky thought, this is kind of, see the top left, I mean, the top of this graphic where it shows like a larger massing of buildings on both sides. That's just kind of how we envision these urban parks developing over time. And I guess it happened quick, you know, faster on the east side. But just kind of as we think about what, and this is obviously before the chamber move, but you know, how does that edge get defined? It's probably a little bit more than we're thinking now, but it is something dangerous.
So did Joe meet with the Parks Board?
That will follow this meeting. So I originally had a meeting with Parks Board in May of 2018 when they kind of proposed this more natural feel as opposed to a playground more natural play elements instead of a bucket dump system for a spray ground, something more like that bottom. Really to stay with that super urban park feel as opposed to a playground with swings and a splash pad and that type of thing. Definitely keeping, their thought was to keep tennis and pickleball there and maybe move those more organized, those more natural organic sports that happen because the neighborhood is there and they walk over with their tennis racket, their tennis ball, or they walk over, but those more organized, scheduled league like hockey, take that maybe out to community. So that was kind of their feel. And this is kind of a result of what you see here was a result of me originally meeting with Parks Board and then talking to council. They are expecting probably our next meeting to take back what we discussed tonight there to get their feedback first before we do the public input, the larger public input session.
So, thank you. So going back to this whole schools letting out and something for the teenagers to do, you know, we see so much basketball activity at Isaac Scruggs, and that's probably a function of it's in the neighborhood and they go home and get their basketball, and we don't see much basketball activity in Herfurth Park, but if we
do after school when school's in session. So if you remember, when we redid the 2 tennis courts, I also redid that small half court. And it's got people on it a lot. And
Maybe
so
we need to
that might
consider
be
that.
an element that, you know.
And the solution to that is not do full courts.
Mhm.
Full courts, get the big kids out there
Yeah.
dominating both ends, and
Yeah.
so the idea is even, like sometimes you see that we might do a large circle with 3 courts, kind of half courts in
Yeah.
the middle, so you kind of, and it makes it a lot more inviting for all ages to get out there and not get bullied off the court. So I think that is a viable, and you're not doing it in the idea of it being actively recreation, but it is a passive pickup and it gets people outside with something else to do. That court also can transform into something else. So there's some products out there that have multi-use kind of courts. It becomes a basketball court, I don't know the name. What's the futsal?
Yeah.
Soccer. You play on a basketball court, and it kind of has a little cutout for that. So it gives you a lot of different things. Then maybe you can pull it. Then also you can pull a volleyball net across it.
Put a gaga ball pit in there?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Dodgeball?
Dodgeball.
Oh, yeah.
Dodgeball pit.
Yeah. The problem with that is you got to have ADA accessible, which you have to have some waivers and things, but in a public setting, exposures, you have to make ADA accessible. Yeah, those are kind of things that you should always make a little activity zone that have all those things going there.
Keep those kids busy.
I think
And
it's
it is,
important
I
to
mean,
keep
they
it.
are hanging out there, so when Quill lets out,
Yeah,
we drive through there a lot.
something.
When Quill
Yeah.
lets out after school, the kids are going over, and when school's in session playing basketball, and just hanging out in the bleachers that are there now. Imagine how many more hang out when there's a big large open space, just to run and play, because
Yeah.
that's what they want to do more than anything, is just interact with each other and have open space to move around after sitting in a classroom all day. And so half basketball court, tennis courts, whatever it is, there's some elements there that then also when school isn't in session and when those kids have gone home, the neighborhood kids come over to do that. It's not just kids. I mean, I've gone by nights after leaving council meeting, they've turned on the tennis court lights so the adults can play basketball. A bunch of, 18 to 24-year-old guys out there playing half-court basketball, just having fun and laughing. You can hear them laughing when you pull in the park. So those are all important elements. They're still natural and still fit with that and still fit with that programmable open space, but give you something a little extra.
All right, so if I were to ask y'all, based on what you said, imagine the sports lighting, baseball lighting, tennis court lighting, evaluate the quality and usability at night. What is the current ordinance for park usage sun up to dusk now, unless it's a lit facility?
Right.
Do we want to think about lighting this later so that it gets more use after?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hands
Not
down.
sports lighting, but I would
Yeah,
just
it's
decorative lighting on the
Yeah.
walking path.
Yeah.
Trail lighting, for sure.
So,
We have to have sports lighting on the tennis court.
On the tennis court,
okay,
right.
but even along the trail, you can see decorative.
We have so many areas right now that could be used that we have lighting, and so, trying to retrofit that, I would say you want lighting
And I think too, what kind of court lighting you have plays into where that goes, right? So we're not gonna be able to flip tennis courts over behind houses and the lighting that stays on until 10 or 11 o'clock. So we may have to shuffle that a little bit to
So like
play
the-
into what makes the most sense. So
But the
that
dog park lighting hasn't been a problem.
we cut it off at 9 o'clock.
Right.
So people are probably conditioned to that being baseball
Yeah.
lighting too, right? Sometimes just people get used to, well, that's always been lights on out there. That, that is a strategy we deal with sometimes too, is, just over time, just conditioning people that things have changed and.
But that could be better lighting on those dog parks, because right now it's sports field lighting.
Right.
It could be a softer
The technology we're lighting now is so much better than it was.
It does, and it gets brighter when you walk under it, and I mean, just look at the lights
It's
we put in
running
it.
like
zone alone.
off
Yeah.
along the walking trail. Beside the walking trail, wouldn't take up much.
So we do like a park in, hole, each hole's a park in, all the way around.
We were just thinking, if you could run a putt putt along the walking trail, you walk around and putt your way around.
I did, baby.
Yeah.
We could call it Putt Putt Park.
That's amazing.
Not even been.
103 people just to maintain this park with the carousel and the putt putt. We're slowly but surely increasing the staff.
I'm not sure I like the carousel idea with the schools is right now.
First
That's
rider,
weird.
roller coaster.
Yeah, it's funny.
You'd get a lot of animals on a
It's
carousel.
tough.
I agree.
It's tough to not run that.
But it would
It's
be,
a tiny
but it would be
time.
cool to have that
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Okay, so Wynwood Wolves, okay.
We'll bring one in for a special event.
Any police and fire concerns as far as
Nah.
access and?
Just making sure they have access, yes.
Wow.
I need to stay out of trouble
Access
with
and
the
lights.
chiefs.
We're not asking permission.
Access to the lights. Asking permission.
Just lights.
Just lights. So-
Yes, there's lots of stuff, there's lots of
Trails.
stuff going on at Herfurth Park at night.
Yeah.
But that's a lighting issue and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And as you increase use, a lot of that stuff, I mean, it's that whole, the more use you have, the less trouble you have. It's just
I'm
the
out
reality.
there late at night, there's a lot of mischief going on.
Also, something that we've
Not
done,
very many people.
this park over here at Pine Grove, is there signs that tell you, where to call 911, but they're numbered,
Oh, like
and so the fire department would know where you are if you have a heart attack on that walking
We've
trail.
done that on trails before, because trails don't have addresses, but if you know you're on the blue mile,
Yeah.
at least gets you within a
Yeah.
certain access point, or the orange mile, so
Right.
the same thing, there's probably, Herfurth, good thing about Herfurth is, right now, you can see from one end to the other.
That's
If we get too much of a changing that, we will consider access points for emergency vehicles and what.
And understanding where you are, if you go there.
Those that wind back through the trees and through that's where it gets really difficult, so.
Yeah.
Those parks all have that.
We'll get to that age, to be over,
We want you to know.
Well, I don't think it tells you.
All right, what else, everybody? Are we wrapping up?
Whenever you're ready. What else are we missing?
What about from your staff, Angie?
They're ready to see this in the mood. I'm not gonna lie.
Aaron, what do
So-
you want? What do you want out there?
Whatever y'all want.
Easy way out. No, sir.
Aaron.
Are you running for office?
He's running to keep his job.
We have been through this process so many times
Oh,
now,
yeah.
and we're ready to start seeing changes.
Yeah, with the
Right? So I think that's the critical element, is ensuring that we're putting in something that we can maintain, putting in something that we can use, right? So we know we need event space. This is going to slowly but surely dwindle away. One's going away now, one may go away, sooner or later, and that's the big thing for us, is what do we do long-term for event space? What happens to the back of the Conroe? What do we do? And so, for us, phase one critical is making sure that we have event space that we can use. And whether that's summer concerts that draw 2,000 people, or fireworks on Main that draws 11,000 people, we need to be able to convert that space into accommodating them. And having the room to do that, whether it's a small stage or a big stage. And I think we can do that at this park and keep that very natural urban feel, kind of like Potty Warren, right? Where it just is open space people use because they are using it. I'm down here at Bankhead ever so often, and this has constantly got kids of all ages from 65 to 18 out there doing stuff, whether they're just having lunch with their family or they're out on a Friday night. One night I was here and they were playing capture the flag, and one night they just had a bunch of frisbees. And so that just proves that there is a need for that open space, and not over-programming it, not adding everything under the sun to this park because it's the newest park,
That's what
right?
happened to City Manstead. It was a cold baseball field, and the team we had to pull to get a baseball field removed, they've been there for 50 or 60 years, it was unbelievable. And the biggest complaint is there's too many people in the park. There's too many people there.
That's a problem.
And I just think we don't want to over-program this space so that it's so much that when we get ready to have an event, we don't have that space that we really, really need. And know that it's 3 phases, and we have lots of big ideas about what that looks like, but $1.8 million in phase 1 only goes so far. So what is, these guys have challenged with what does the whole thing look like when it's all said and done, what can I do for this? And the possibility of, in the next one, getting more money. So, making the best of what we have and taking advantage of the development on the other side if we can, and making sure that.
That's what I'm really interested in, is be curious to hear how that conversation goes and what their plans are, because I can see that being such a cool space, and that becomes your front door to that park, and it completely changes it.
All right, so this is all next steps and next timeline. We've got a little homework to do with some coordination with the adjacent development, some concept planning to do, some solution selections. I guess that's a good word. Come up with some solutions and get it back in front of y'all so y'all can select or have input on which ones y'all like best. Get that and to the public. Come up with that strategy. How we're going to get this information to the public so they can provide their input and we get a final concept that would need to be approved by council at some point. Is there a city expectation when y'all want to have that? Like y'all had before the end of this year, we want a new approved plan to be adopted by council. Is that sooner or later, or what's y'all's realistic expectation of that?
I think for me, the sooner we can get to that approved plan, the sooner we're starting construction. And what does that look like? Does that look like going out and taking out every baseball fence, knowing that we have relocated those services to another place? What does that look like? And the quicker we do that, the quicker we are then looking at where are those things getting relocated. We're already taking 2. We've already added 2 fields at Community. We're adding a field at Springfield. We're adding a field at Shorewood. So we're putting in some of those other elements, but the quicker we have that direction, the quicker we do other things as well.
You've got to
right?
build that inline ring somewhere before you tear this one out.
Absolutely.
But that rink could stay at Herfurth for another couple of years.
Yeah, easy.
Just
Depending on what that future layout.
depending on the phases.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying, you got to
Because it
start
might not make
another
sense to
one,
do that
Yep.
entrance first, right? It might make sense to go further back first and then move forward. But the sooner we have that, the sooner we are better spending our current bond dollars and planning for our future.
Well, I think it's really important that we don't waste resources, and I know that sounds trite, but, we don't need to be moving the dog park when we have a perfectly viable dog park. We don't need to be moving the hockey rink if we don't have funding for the new hockey rink right now, and we can do the rest of the phasing around the current hockey rink. I wouldn't be moving the tennis courts, but y'all are gonna put a road in there, so I think we have to move the tennis courts. But do we really have to? This is a $10 million park. We're not gonna have $10 million. So we've got to be really smart about this and make our money last as long as it possibly can and do as much as we possibly can with it. And know that this is going to be a long-term process, but we got to have some wins along the way. last thing I want to see done is that we're doing this design that never comes to fruition because we're planning overhead walkways when we should be utilizing what we have and getting the best asset we can for the community.
I agree. Michael, do you have anything?
That's great. That tells me a lot, because that's what I think we're good at doing, is hearing that and knowing, stay on course. We've been told to go off course and come up with that before, other cities, probably y'all at some point, but at this point, I kind of have a real good idea of, we want to see things built in a logical manner. We'll be creative, but it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be Taj Mahal.
Doesn't have to be what?
Taj Mahal.
Maybe it starts all of its things, right? So, I mean, there's so many things we can do that we can grow.
So think about a scenario like this. Let's go now. Yes, you have a great dog park. You have a inline hockey rink. You have existing tennis court. What if phase one is more land sculpting and trail building and getting the bones of what needs to be there? Then you have this great asset of this open space with still some of your uses. It's not all your full uses, but it gets the hardest part is going to be getting that backbone built. And it's going to provide some.
I think one of the keys of that is what's going to happen with that road, because that road's going to come in. So you're going to have to move some things.
And we'll
So
meet,
that would
what we will
influence
do
that.
is meet with Daniel to make sure
But I agree
that
with
we
you.
have that in box.
Plus the
Or
splash
whoever
pad.
community developer.
I think it's more than meeting with community development, and we need to meet with the developer.
Yeah,
That-
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's future phases of that development, future phases of this park that need to be built. There's a partnership there. There's a larger conversation, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why, I know in some previous deals, we've seen kind of what they want to do with that drainage area. They want to program that space,
Yeah.
Global does. And that's why I was thinking that something carried over into what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now you've got this really nice facility that.
Greystone Street, but it can look like a natural transition into the park area with a brick drive there instead of
And depending on the elevation change, are you going from that space at grade, or is there enough room to get under?
Yeah.
I don't know that drainage, what
Yeah,
they're
we'll
doing,
have to look at
the
that.
drainage thing.
Yeah, but we can absolutely have that conversation.
Maybe they threw some money in the park.
Like, see,
What'd you say?
So maybe Global will be willing to put some money into the park.
Okay, anything else? Anybody? Anything? Anybody else? Anything? Thank you.
All right, thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
This is great.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll coordinate together and.
yeah.
All right, 7:09 and we are adjourned.